ඔෆිස් එකේදී විතරක් නෙවෙයි මම දැන් ගෙදරදිත් IDD කෝල්ස් ගන්නේ SLT ෆෝන් එකේ.
ඔබේ නිවසේ SLT දුරකථනය දැන් IDD පහසුකම සහිතයි.
Good evening, making headlines first at 9. Heralding a warning. President Maithripala Sirisena calls for tougher action on the underworld and threatens to replace those who cannot. Point of discussion. Responding to yesterday's remarks by the President, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa insists that the government is in disarray and calls for a general election. New borders, parts of Sri Lanka's revised map launched.
The Colombo city has undergone a lot of changes, and all these changes have been incorporated into this map.
High expectations. The Minister of Development Strategies and International Trade forecasts FDIs to surpass $2.5 billion this year.
And this year I have no doubt that we will exceed this figure and it will be over 2.5 billion.
Temporary charge. A competent authority appointed to oversee Sri Lanka cricket until the election.
My secretary, who is the competent authority to carry on what's best for Sri Lanka cricket.
Meanwhile, the notion of a fix at the 2011 World Cup final brushed off.
He's just making utterance. If he's genuine about this comment he's making, there are so many forums he can lodge and complain.
Good evening. Waste management for floodwater management. What measures will the government take? We'll take a look at that later on in the bulletin, but we begin with tonight's local news. President Maithripala Sirisena states that if the Ministry of Law and Order and the Inspector General of Police do not take legal action to rein in the underworld, the responsibility will be passed on to a competent person. The head of state made the statement while addressing the ceremony organised to declare open the new court complex in Vattala today.
The new court complex established in Vattala at an expense of 275 million rupees was declared open by President Maithripala Sirisena today.
When it comes to crime, the biggest challenge is curbing cybercrimes and those involving mobile phones. The Inspector General of Police handed me a report which included details of cybercrimes of an entire month. I cringed when I saw that report. He told me that only 10% is recorded in the report. When the recent unrest broke in Kandy, I shut local media sites despite many opposing the decision. We called the headquarters of such social media sites and explained them that if they won't control these situations, we will have to suspend those sites irrespective of who opposed the decision. Many would criticize me for what I just said. The judges know that they are criticized through social media before they give certain judgments. They get upset as to why it happens. As politicians, we are used to such. There are accusations levelled against the government saying that we let the underworld raise its head. I don't accept it as it's not a fair accusation. What usually happens is that famous criminals commit crimes and it is reported that they have fled the country. The police have all the information of these criminals and their families, and their details fed into the airport database and given instructions that they should not be allowed to leave the country. I had a firm talk with the IGP on this matter last week as well. The Ministry of Law and Order and the Police Department should take responsibility. If the government feels that it is not done efficiently, we will have to let someone who can do it take the responsibility.
And the main topic of discussion in the political arena today was a statement made by President Maithripala Sirisena yesterday during the 76th birth anniversary of the late Venerable Madulwave Sobhita Thera. Let's now take a look at what various politicians had to say on the matter today.
After what the President said yesterday, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe should leave the government if he has any shame. If Ranil Wickremesinghe was appointed as the Prime Minister with only 48 seats in Parliament, For his favour, Mahinda Rajapaksa should then be appointed as the next Prime Minister because he has more seats and power in his favour. Mr. President, we respectfully ask you to oust this UNP government. There were many who contributed to the 100-day programme. The UNP mainly provided help. Certain parties within the SLFP also contributed, along with President Maithripala Sirisena. It was late Venerable Sobhitha Thera who took the leadership in this regard. It was because of all their efforts that the 100-day programme became a reality. The 100-day programme was his main election manifesto, and if he doesn't know who came up with it, we can't expect more from this country anymore. We kept talking about the 100-day programme on every campaign stage ahead of the presidential election. We all knew who made the manifesto. We were able to increase basic salaries of government employees by 10,000 rupees, significantly decrease the prices of necessary goods and reduced fuel prices because of the 100-day programme. Are all this done by the SLFP then? Hasn't the UNP contributed to any good deed here? All political forces who gathered for the big change in the country came up with the 100-day programme. Many important decisions were included in the manifesto to strengthen democracy. We take the responsibility in that regard. But if someone is claiming that they were never part of it, you should ask all these questions from them. The President made some very serious allegations towards the UNP. As former members of the cabinet, we completely agree with what he said. Prime Minister made several attempts to pass a cabinet paper which would allow private banks to absorb money of state banks. A special trait of the Prime Minister is when a decision is rejected, he would come up with strategic ways to try and pass through obstacles. This characteristic of the Prime Minister has become a challenge for the President, and that is what he keeps talking about all the time. He clearly said the 100-day programme was a stupid idea. It really was, because if you look at the budget, which came under the 100-day programme, none of those proposals were implemented.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa also responded to remarks made by the President yesterday and highlighted the need to move for a stable government. He called on the government to hold a general election as it is high time for it. The former President made his thoughts clear on the matter following a discussion held at his official residence in Derana today with some members of the joint opposition.
Yes, following the discussion, we decided that parliamentarian Dala Salahaperuma will release a statement. It's not a special decision, but we asked a group of people to present a statement releasing necessary information for the public. We clearly see that there is no government. The statements made by the President and the Prime Minister clearly show that dissolving the Parliament is the only thing left to be done. The country cannot be developed or move forward in such conditions. What should be done is to dissolve the Parliament and to hold an election to establish a stable government. As per my memory, I travelled in that helicopter when I was the President. I left Colombo even before the results were out. The outgoing President waits until the incoming President takes oath.
And the Working Committee of the United National Party convened today with an array of matters taken up during the meeting. The plight of the fishing community over the recent fuel price hike was also on the agenda. And speaking to media following the meeting, State Minister of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources Development Dilip Vidarachchi said he suggested the establishment of kerosene filling stations at all fishing ports in the country. Responding to journalists, the State Minister went on to say that the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance assured positive results on a possible kerosene subsidy for the fishing community.
The Working Committee of the United National Party met at the party headquarters, Sirikota, at 9:30 a.m. today. Various topics including the upcoming provincial council election, restructuring the party and the difficulties faced by the fishing community owing to the fuel price hike was discussed during the meeting. Pitch-fixing allegations levelled against three Sri Lankan officials last week during a television expose was also highlighted during the meeting. Members of the UNP Working Committee expressed views to media on their way out.
Currently, we have a problem regarding the electoral system. After deciding an electoral system, we intend to discuss the system under which we need to prepare and on how to win upcoming elections. The Working Committee came up with several suggestions regarding the kerosene subsidy for the fishing community. The Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance agreed to them and assured successful results. I suggested the establishment of kerosene filling stations at all the fishing ports in the country. We will discuss this matter tomorrow in the presence of the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Fisheries as well as representatives of the fishing community.
Match fixing.
The topic of match fixing was also discussed during the meeting. Minister Ranjan Ramanayake was of the view that Tilanga Sumathipala, being the president of Sri Lanka Cricket, is illegal. He went on to say that this incident is a black mark on Sri Lanka and therefore requested the Prime Minister to intervene and resolve this matter.
We'll be back with more local news after this short break. Do stay with First at 9.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Welcome back. Still in local news, the 16 members of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party who vacated their positions in the government recently are adamant that the country needs an executive president in the prevailing political climate. Therefore, the group said that they vehemently reject the 20th Amendment to the Constitution proposed by the Janatha Vimukthi Peramuna. They expressed their views while addressing a media briefing in Colombo today.
We completely reject the draft bill of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. We see that the JVP has brought this to please someone else. This is a time where we discuss giving more powers to provincial councils. That is why we need an executive president. What would it be like when an executive prime minister appoints a president? That kind of a president will be more flexible for a prime minister than a governor. National reconciliation is entrusted with the president. The safety and security of the nation and the country depend on the president. If the prime minister appoints the president, that does not reflect the expectations of the general public. We're thinking on a broad alliance and we have a set of suitable candidates. Names of Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Basil Rajapaksa and Chamal Rajapaksa are mentioned. Meanwhile, SLFP proposes the name of Maithripala Sirisena. We will take a decision in due course and that is not an issue.
The Survey Department of Sri Lanka today launched several maps of the revised landmass map series of the country. The maps launched today indicate an additional 2 square kilometre landmass due to the Port City Development Project in Colombo.
For the first time in 20 years, Survey Department of Sri Lanka is revising the landmass map of the country under the series National Topographical Map Series of 1:50,000. The series consists 92 maps, out of which 70 maps have already been completed, with the indication of many recent developments, features including the Hambantota Port, Muragahakanda Reservoir, as well as the Colombo Port City project. The Survey Department launched several of the completed maps at the premises of the department today under the patronage of Minister of Lands, Kayantha Karunathilaka.
Today we launched a very significant map of this series, which is containing this Colombo city and the Colombo district. The Colombo city has undergone a lot of changes and all these changes have been incorporated into this map. And the most important thing here, I think the development of the port city, which makes the extent of this area extend higher by about 2 square kilometers, and the shape of shoreline is also significantly changed by this development. And we have incorporated all the other developments like new buildings and roads, so on. This is available for public now for purchase in the digital form. We will be able to provide this in printed form by another 2 weeks.
Well, over the last decade, Colombo has seen an increase of floods, especially in 2016 and the year after. Large areas of the capital was inundated during the southwest monsoon season, late May. Decades of unauthorized construction on riverbanks, as well as dumping of waste and neglect, have led to obstruction of canals. It is in this backdrop and as a part of Sri Lanka's larger plan to introduce a proper floodwater management system for the capital that the government and China Petroleum Pipeline Engineering yesterday inked a contract to construct new underwater sewage and pipelines in Colombo to prevent the threat of floods. The new Mutwal and Torrington Tunnel projects are part of the Colombo development project that also looks at introducing a proper floodwater management system for the capital. Funded by the World Bank, the cost of the project is estimated at $31 million and the construction work will be undertaken by China Petroleum Pipeline Engineering. The 760-meter new Mutwal tunnel will lead through some of the most populated areas in Colombo, which are at heavy risk of floods, and will successfully lead rainwater into sea. Meanwhile, the 1.1-kilometer Torrington Tunnel will also lead rainwater into the ocean, preventing future floods.
CPP pays high attention to the project of design and building of the new Mutwal and the Torrington Tunnel. We will organize the right-weighted and capable team, good quality resources, scientific planning and fine management.
In the meantime, Minister of Megapolis and Western Development Partly Champika Ranawaka spoke on the recently concluded sewage and pipeline projects.
The sewage and pipeline system in Colombo must be systematic for the city to move forward. There is no point in beautifying the overground areas of Colombo when the underground is otherwise. We have started the construction of underground tunnels. We were able to successfully complete the underground canal from the junction at the Devi Balika Vidyalaya across the Parliament Road itself. That is an achievement.
The Sri Lanka Red Cross Society, with the support of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, has launched a recovery operation to assist over 50,000 people who were severely affected by the recent floods. 57 million rupees has been allocated for this project that will run for the next 4 months in severely affected districts of Putlam, Kalutara, Kegaul, Ratnapura, Gampaha and Colombo. Cash grants of 10,000 rupees to 2,800 households will also be provided through a bank transfer to fulfill the basic needs such as buying back essential household items, medicine and other personal requirements. Also, the Red Cross says it will assist in water sanitation and hygiene promotion and intervention by cleaning wells that were contaminated by flood water. And Minister of International Trade is confident that Sri Lanka will have over $25 billion worth foreign direct investments by the end of this year. He said this at the event where the Board of Investment signed a memorandum of understanding with 6 regulatory bodies and launched the Single Window Investment Facilitation Task Force. Addressing the event, he further said that the increased foreign direct investments show how the economic agenda of the government is being appreciated by the local and international investors.
A memorandum of understanding was signed between the Board of Investments with the Department of Registrar of Companies, the Inland Revenue Department, Sri Lanka Customs, the Central Environmental Authority, the Urban Development Authority and the Colombo Municipal Council. The Single Window Investment Facilitation Task Force was also launched at the event, which makes it easy for the local and foreign investors to invest in Sri Lanka.
The World Bank and DFAT has been assisting us in many ways to improve the business climate in Sri Lanka. So I really thank you. I believe that taking this step gives the BOI a lot of confidence in taking this initiative forward. As we all know, we inherited a huge debt, and the only way we can get over this problem is to increase the foreign direct investments from local entrepreneurs, and by increasing our exports. So all this can be done only if we have a system where we ensure that these investors and exporters are looked after. I think this is a step in the right direction, and I'm very confident, judging by the approvals already granted by the BOI this year, that we are on the right track. As I mentioned a few days ago, in the first 4 months, the Board of Investments has approved projects to the value of 1.348 billion, which is a huge amount in the first 4 months. And now I am aware there are in the pipeline another $1.4 billion worth of projects where the approvals, I'm sure, can be granted before 30th of June. So when you add these two, we have about $2.75 billion of investment which will come to Sri Lanka in the near future. At the same time, we are also increasing the FDIs. Last year we had a record 1.9 billion, and this year I have no doubt that we will exceed this figure and it will be over 2.5 billion. So this clearly shows that the economic agenda of our government is being appreciated by the investors, private sector investors, both locally and foreign.
And at the Colombo Stock Exchange today, shares fell for a fourth straight session today and posted their lowest close in 5 months, dragged by conglomerate John Keells Holdings on foreign investors selling. The all share price index ended 0.35% weaker at 6,338.44. Turnover was 2.3 million rupees, more than twice of this year's daily average of 998 million rupees. And at the currency market, the Sri Lankan rupee touched a record closing low today on strong dollar demand from foreign banks and importers, with exporters staying on the sidelines, expecting the rupee to weaken further in line with other emerging market currencies. The spot rupee ended at 158.50 to 60 per dollar, its lowest close compared with yesterday's close of 158.20 to 30. Here's a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. And we'll be back with your international news after this short break. Do stay with us.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
In your top overseas news, as well as we all know, the world is now looking forward to the possible historical summit between the US President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, which is to be held next month. The diplomatic summit was first initiated by North Korea, only to be cancelled recently by the US president. However, on Saturday, President Trump informed via his Twitter account that he himself is looking forward to the big meeting, indicating the possibility of the meeting going ahead. As these developments have been unfolding, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and North Korean envoy Kim Yong-chol held key discussions yesterday. Kim Yong-chol is the most senior North Korean envoy to hold talks with American officials on U.S. soil in 18 years.
High-ranking officials of the United States and North Korea met in New York yesterday in the first of 2 days of talks about the future of Pyongyang's nuclear weapons program and a possible summit between US President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The two officials held discussions for 90 minutes over dinner and exited without providing any detailed remarks to reporters waiting outside. Pompeo would only say that the dinner was great and that the two men dined on American beef. Kim is a former spy and chief and trusted advisor to the North Korean leader, playing a pivotal role in preparations for the historic summit between Kim and US President Donald Trump. Sent as Kim Jong-un's envoy to the Winter Olympics in South Korea in February, Kim Yong-chol told South Korean President Moon Jae-in that Pyongyang was open to talks with Washington. It was the first indication that North Korea was changing course after months of trading threats and insults with the United States. However, later US President Donald Trump cancelled the 12 June summit, but both sides have since made fresh efforts to hold it as planned. Scheduled to happen in Singapore, the historic meet between Trump and Kim Jong-un would be the first between sitting US and North Korean leaders.
In your your sports news, Minister of Sports Faiza Mustafa today announced the appointment of a competent authority to oversee the functions of Sri Lanka cricket until such time its elections are held. Secretary to the Ministry of Sports, Kamal Padmasiri, said Chief Executive Officer of Sri Lanka Cricket Ashley De Silva be named in the authority, with all executive powers of the SLC being vested with the Secretary to the Ministry of Sports until a new board is elected. In the meantime, former President of Sri Lanka Cricket, Tilanga Sumathipala, expressed his displeasure over the postponement of Sri Lanka cricket elections.
I am very worried about this decision. We have a massive plan for the next 1.5 years and it was completely halted due to this decision.
You referred to the 2011 game. Yesterday, Arjuna was making some allegations that he wants that the outcome of that match investigated.
Arjuna was in this board for almost 1 year. He could have investigated into things like that. He was dead sure whatever he is saying he can't substantiate. He's just making utterance. I deny any involvement. I take the responsibility from my board. Nobody in the executive committee or the management of this board is up to mischief or any malpractices. When Arjuna was captaining after 1996, we couldn't come to the final round in the 99, but people were also telling at that time, don't know whether this man has threw the wicket, the match. That are allegations, but we don't discuss that in public, no. We are implying that Sangha and Mahela has thrown the match. Is it a good thing to do? If he is genuine about this comment he is making, there are so many forums he can lodge and find there is anything that he can substantiate and deal with it. You can't keep on attacking those two people. It's not fair. We condemn that.
In the meantime, convening a media briefing today, Minister of Sports Faiza Mustafa responded to journalists over the postponement of elections of Sri Lanka cricket.
I can't comment on court proceedings, no. I believe that election should have been held on the 31st. Court held otherwise. If court makes a decision, I respect it. I can't challenge that decision. Honorable Tilanga Sumathipala, other officials of the cricket board, they will continuously support my secretary, who is the competent authority, to carry on what's best for Sri Lanka cricket.
Watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
A very good evening and welcome to Forecast First. Your temperatures for tomorrow will vary between 21 and 31 degrees Celsius, with the highest of 31 Celsius degrees expected in the southeastern corner of the country. Well, when looking at the map, a low pressure zone is set to develop along the coastal belt from Mannar to Galle over the next 24 hours. Well, the sun will shine bright upon many areas of the island, including Jaffna, Anuradhapura, Batticaloa and Trincomalee. But in the areas of Colombo, Kandy, Galle and Mathura as well as Hambantota will experience showers, with thunder showers also expected. That's all we have from the Weather Centre tonight. Up next is your city by city forecast.
And that's all the news tonight on First at 9. But before we go tonight, we'd like to take you to the Kalabuk Estate Plantation in Wattegama in the Central Hills. Maintained by the Sri Lanka Plantation Corporation, the estate was established in 1924. It is one of the oldest tea estates in the country and attracts both local and foreign tourists alike. Enjoy the visuals. Have a pleasant evening.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.